remarkably complex and beautiful configurations known as crop circles. Phenomena persisted for decades, but the questions now being raised cut to the very heart of the controversy. What exactly is the origin of these amazing formations, and who or what is responsible for making them? Two new chapters of this inquiry have begun to unfold in dramatic fashion. First, an amazing eyewitness account of a crop circle actually being formed. And second, the discovery of two crop circles that have a chilling connection to a message beamed into distant space by Earth scientists nearly 30 years ago. Even the most serious researchers of crop circles acknowledge that over the years, hoaxers have had their hands in many of the 10,000 total reported crop circles, probably since the days of the earliest discoveries. Is it possible, then, that solid scientific support for the claims of authenticity by crop circle investigators has finally and fully ended the debate?
How many hours it can take an unknown number of hoaxers to create one of the large and elaborate crop circles can be long debated, unless they want to let us in on their secrets. However, what they cannot replicate is some of the chemical and biological abnormalities that we've detected in some of the genuine crop circles. The classic evidence found in the grain of genuine crop circles includes the presence of elongated nodes, expulsion cavities, and germination abnormalities. These represent specific, irrefutable changes at a cellular level that cannot be forged by hoaxers stomping crops with wooden planks. The disbelievers and skeptics have never been able to explain away what science has indisputably and consistently proven.
Another puzzling aspect of the crop circle phenomenon has been the frequent appearance of lights above and near many of the sites. Glowing orbs would sometimes be present, and even more frequently, they would appear in photographs taken at the crop circle locations without having appeared to the naked eye. It is the lights that play an important role in the extraordinary experience of an eyewitness to one of the most remarkable recent crop circle experiences on record. Nancy Talbot is no novice to the world of crop circles. She is a co-founder of BLT, an investigative research team that includes biophysicist William C. Levengood, whose breakthrough scientific testing procedures have set the standard for evaluating plants affected by the crop circle phenomenon. Nancy Talbot's amazing and unique experience occurred during a research trip to Holland in the summer of 2001.
I was there on behalf of Dr. William Roll, the Parapsychological Services Institute, doing some geomagnetic and electromagnetic work at a site where we have a lot of crop circles and an individual who seems to anticipate their coming. I don't know if it's possible for a person to will a crop circle into being. There are many groups who have meditated on particular designs and later found them in the fields. But more interestingly are unconscious thoughts of crop circles where people have either driven by a hillside where there is no crop circle and they get an idea of what they'd like to see there, and the next day when they drive by, there it is.
On August 8th, Nancy went to visit Robert Vanderbroek, who lived near the city of Hoven.
The primary reason to be in southern Holland was to study more closely a young man there, his name is Robert, who for many years now has had dreams of crop circles occurring in his area, a situation which has often resulted in people going to the area, the field which he has seen in this dream, and there in fact will be a new crop circle.
For the first 10 days in Holland, Robert and Nancy visited a number of crop formations which had occurred in the area prior to her arrival. They were gathering the baseline data for Dr. Roll's research. During the nights, they bicycled out to the fields with a night vision camcorder and several flash cameras in order to carry out photographic experiments.
It has been discovered that very unusual light phenomena often appear on these photographs, balls of light, but sometimes flashes or dribs or drabs of light, which we don't think we can explain by any sort of camera malfunction or film glitch. On the night of the 20th, I had been in Holland by about 2 weeks by this time, and we had spent the days with the magnetometers out in the various crop circles that had occurred, taking measurements, and every night until 3 o'clock in the morning doing flash photography or other work in the crop circles. And I was exhausted, Robert wanted to know if we were going out again, and in disgust, I pretty much said, no, I'm going up to bed, and did so, leaving Robert down in the kitchen. Once I got upstairs, I pulled these curtains, thin, gauzy curtains in front of the windows, got into my nightgown, and got into bed to read for a while. Within about 3 minutes, I heard an intense, raucous bawling coming from some cows in a nearby barn.
But the cattle soon quieted down, and Nancy went back to her reading.
At about 3:10, the cattle started to bawl again, this time louder, clearly in distress. And I realized again that perhaps I should get up and go to the windows so that I could see whatever this was that was happening. Some intuition kept me in the bed. I didn't get up. I would say that maybe 3 minutes elapsed after that, and then all of a sudden, this brilliant white, slightly bluish around the edges, tube or column of light descended with enormous force down to the ground. It lit up my bedroom like daytime. The outside was so bright I could see the trees across the field. Then everything went quiet. It was dark. As if nothing had happened at all. I almost wasn't sure I'd seen it. But within another second, another tube, another column of light descended, again with this incredible force, extremely difficult to explain the energy that was involved there, came crashing down to the ground, and again, it lasted for a second or so, and then it went dark. By this time, I was starting to think of Robert, wondering if he was seeing the same thing downstairs, and before I could get out of the bed, a third column came crashing down, almost in exactly the same location. Again, the outside lit up. Again, my room lit up. By now, I was yelling for Robert, who was downstairs in the kitchen watching the same thing, and I could hear him yelling for me about the same event. Everybody immediately went to the windows at the back of the house to look up to see where these lights had come from, what was up there. And there was absolutely nothing.
They were separated from the farmer's field by a fence and a deep irrigation ditch. Just over the fence, about 15 feet into the field, just barely visible in the darkness, was a new crop circle. Nancy's desire to experience the phenomenon in a more direct way was fulfilled beyond her wildest expectations. But what, in fact, had they just seen? There wasn't a hint as to where the light had come from, yet the tangible, physical result of the effect of the light was just a matter of a few yards away. What would a close-up inspection of the field in daylight reveal? Had they just witnessed the true source of authentic crop circles in action? The thought of sleep was completely gone as Nancy and Robert pointed their flashlights out into the field. There were no hoaxers anywhere about, no students with elaborate plans, no men from the local pub with a board attached to one foot, nothing. The question was, would they find the markers they had come to expect when true crop circles were formed?
I grabbed a flashlight, and as we got to the fence at the back of the house, I turned it on, and when I put it on the field, there, about 10, maybe 15 feet into the field, was a brand new 35-foot ellipse staring at us back from the dark. Half of the leaves were laid in one direction and half were laid in the other, and so we got a strange, an odd reflection, but we could clearly see this brand new crop circle in the string bean field. The next morning, when I got up, to my absolute amazement, I could see this brand new crop circle from the bed itself. We got up and immediately went to the circle, where we found a 35-foot long ellipse rather than a circle, off of which to the north went a long pathway and a crossbar like the capital letter T. The bean plants were swept counterclockwise along the northern edge of the ellipse and then laid in one continuous sweep all along the southern edge. The eastern and western edges of the ellipse were slightly squared off, ending in rows of beans on either side, and the standing plants in the rows were completely unaffected.
Examination of the plants showed them all to have been bent over at the base, and no broken or split stems were seen. There was no visible trauma to the stems or leaves or the very healthy-looking beans beneath them.
The night after the crop circle formed, Robert and I and a friend of his went back into the field to take some night flash photography. We had thought we might get some of these orbs or other figures, other light phenomena on the film. Every roll of film that we took that night had photographic anomalies. Some of them were large, semi-transparent orbs that seemed to be some distance away from us and the camera. Others were much smaller, much more dense, and very close to the people who were also in the shots, sometimes directly over their heads, sometimes down low next to the crop surface. Circle research involving a study of clay minerals in soils at crop circles indicates the presence, again, of energies which have been suggested by the plant work earlier on. One of the studies proposed now is an attempt to duplicate these energies, or at least some of them. And in talking to microwave and laser experts about setting up these experiments, they have voiced the opinion that the crop circles are probably the result of either military or industrial research that has either gone astray, an accident, so to speak, where the fields then get impacted with the energies, or that they're actually playing with the citizenry by bouncing these energies off of satellites or perhaps from high-flying, high-altitude aircraft. One of the scientists involved in the most recent soil project came to the opinion that we might be looking at a new energy, or an energy unknown to science at this point in time. And one of the most interesting ideas that I've come up with since this experience was the possibility that this energy, or energy complex, is actually interacting with human consciousness. The fact is that not 15 minutes after I had stated the disgust and the frustration over the elusiveness of the phenomenon and difficulty in studying it, these tubes of light and the circle appeared. Not only did they appear, they did so in the closest field to my location, not more than 90 feet away from me, and entirely visible from the very bed that I was sleeping in.
Nancy Talbot and the hundreds of dedicated researchers like her have already proven the reality of the crop circles to their own satisfaction. But the quest for the origin of these magical, mysterious formations continues, and takes us next to Great Britain. There in the countryside of Chilbolton in the summer of 2001, there appeared two astounding crop circles. Could they be, as some researchers believe, nothing less than a message representing contact from an extraterrestrial civilization? Is it possible that they are in fact a scientific reply to a long-distance call sent into space decades ago? Many researchers now believe that's exactly what occurred in the late summer of 2001. But the origins of this astounding celestial connection go back to the year 1974.
This was an amazing and challenging undertaking. Imagine the task trying to formulate a message that you can send via radio telescope that will go out to someone who can't even understand English and even comes from another planet. The message was designed to be sincere, straightforward and non-threatening, a form of simple hello from planet Earth. It was the first message sent with the express intention of communicating with an alien civilization somewhere. Devising this message became a task for a small group of academics at Cornell University, led by Frank Drake and the late Carl Sagan.
The message would be beamed into deep space from a 300-meter dish built into a mountain by the National Science Foundation at Arecibo, Puerto Rico, the most advanced radio telescope of the day. But in facing such a daunting task, just how do you decide what to put into the message, and in what form do you send it?
Early on, the Cornell scientists made two basic assumptions. One, if there was a distant civilization capable of receiving and decoding a basic message, that civilization had to be, at minimum, somewhat scientifically advanced. The second assumption was that if there was anything close to a universal language among scientifically advanced civilizations, it would have to be the language of mathematics. The message devised by Drake and Sagan took the form of a cleverly devised binary sequence. This Morse code-like message had to be easily recognizable by any alien scientist as being a message and not just the random noise of space. The Arecibo message that was eventually sent showed that our numbering system on Earth used a base of 10. This then became the means to deciphering the rest of the message. Another part of the coded message identified the atomic numbers for hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen and phosphorus, these being the most commonly occurring elements on our planet, the building blocks of human existence. Also included in the transmission was the molecular composition of human DNA, along with a depiction of the double helix DNA strand. The radio message also transmitted information about the human race, such as our form, the average height of humans, and also the population of Earth when the message was sent. One of the controversial inclusions in the message was the identification of our solar system as having 9 planets, and that this message was originating on the 3rd planet from our Sun, the star at the centre of this solar system. The problem that some scientists had, along with government and military officials, was that of a security risk, in that if we transmit a message out in space, we don't know who's going to pick it up, be they a friend or a potential foe. Anyone can decode the message and possibly even come to visit. On November the 16th, 1974, the Arecibo message, consisting of 1,679 pulses of binary data, was transmitted into space and took little under 3 minutes to transmit. This signal was repeated a number of times over the next few days. The message was aimed at what was thought to be our best hunch, a star cluster called M13, which consists of 300,000 stars in the constellation of Hercules. The Arecibo message was later transmitted on several more occasions. Also, a gold-plated plaque displaying a similar message was affixed to Pioneer 10 and 11, the first 2 NASA scientific spacecraft, whose trajectories would carry them beyond our solar system into unknown space.
The burning question being asked 27 years after the first Arecibo transmission was, have we in fact now received a reply in the form of a crop circle in the English countryside? In the intervening years, crop circles have become increasingly complex and have even contributed to new geometric theorems. Had someone, somewhere out there, received the message and created the response? Not all crop circles are discovered right away. And the fact is, they are hardly ever expected to be related, even if they appear in adjoining fields. But all that changed in August of 2001.
Astronomers in the Chilbolton Radio Observatory were looking right out their front windows at what appeared to be binary code laid down in the wheat field. And only 5 days before, on August 14th, they had seen a shadow out in the field, and nobody had looked to see what it was. But by August 20th, with this binary code staring them in the face, so to speak, through the windows of the observatory, phone calls went out, people went up in airplanes, and what they saw startled everyone.
The Chilbolton Radio Telescope Complex was built in 1965, originally funded by Cornell University, the same institution where Carl Sagan and Frank Drake devised the Arecibo message. The facility is situated adjacent to privately owned lands and is surrounded by a high barbed wire fence. The crop markings were easily visible from the Chilbolton complex. It was far from an ideal location for any hoaxers to secretly carry out the making of 2 complex crop formations during the brief nighttime hours of summer. And what did investigators make of the markings? Was there evidence within the formation that suggested an extraterrestrial origin?
This is what was in the field out in front of the observatory, and this is what astronomers from Cornell University prepared to send out in binary code from the Arecibo Radio Observatory down in Puerto Rico on November 16th, 1974.
A close examination showed that the 2 code formations were only similar, but not the same. So what were the significant differences of the patterns in the Chilbolton crop formation compared to the 1974 Arecibo transmission concerning the message's planet of origin?
Well, as you come up into where we had a solar system showing our sun over to the 3rd planet is raised up, 3rd planet from the sun, Earth, We put a little humanoid figure up there and we indicated how high it was and the population. You come over into the photograph of the field in August of 2001, and here's the square for the sun. You come over 2 planets, and the 3rd planet, the 4th planet, the 5th planet are all raised, as we did in our 74 transmission, indicating perhaps that something is saying we have 3 planets inhabited somewhere.
And what about the human figure represented in the original Arecibo code? How has the Chilbolton code responded to that part of the message?
You come to the same position that we indicated a human, and over here it is very odd. If this is a head, it's much, much larger than a human head, and it seems to indicate some kind of arms, a torso, and legs, but with a completely different layout compared to us.
Ultimately, there are 2 overriding questions. Have tricksters with PhD levels of knowledge about cellular biology pushed crop circle hoaxing far beyond the previous levels of sophistication? Or have we finally seen the face of alien contact? Meanwhile, the investigation continues into the amazing pair of crop formations found at the beginning of the 21st century near the Chilbolton Observatory. For the ultimate answer, we can only look to the heavens and watch for new messages in the fields.